Now adjourn. I call the member for Hotham.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker. And we're joined today by a very eminent group of Cambodian community and religious leaders, and I want to begin by welcoming them. We're joined by a number of venerables, firstly, who lead the spiritual and religious life of Cambodian Australians from temples around the country. The Wat Buddha Rangsi, the Khmer Buddhist Centre and the Dhammaran Buddhist Temple are located in my electorate, but we also have venerables here from the Wat Monarangsi, from the Wat Eastern Meanchi, the Wat Canberra and the Wat Bonnie Rig from other parts of the country. So we welcome you to our Parliament and thank you for being here. The Cambodian community in Australia is also blessed by some incredibly driven and passionate community leaders who are engaged in political life both at home in Cambodia and here in Australia. We have leaders with us today such as Hong Lim, the State Member for Clarinda and Parliamentary Secretary, who was Australia's first Cambodian-born Member of Parliament, a fine achievement. We've got Councillor Yu Horn Chia in the gallery, a community hero, a City of Greater Dandenong councillor and a former mayor. And we have Councillor Heng Ming Tak, who is a current councillor, a younger leader and another former mayor who is already a respected and distinguished person. So I want to acknowledge you in the gallery. And also acknowledge Mr Men Bunglay, Mr Saran Keo, Ms Sivorn Pung, Mr Samres Soti, Mr Korb Sao, Mr Dring Men, Mr Piti Ok, Mr Meng Eng Tai, Mr Tarak Bun, and Mrs Darren Peak. So to all of those in the delegation who have joined us, thank you so much for being here, and Swan Sakun, welcome to our Parliament. Speaker, I want to speak today to express my very deep concern about ongoing human rights abuses in Cambodia, and the delegation today have talked extensively about what they see as a very serious deterioration in the human rights situation there. And I made that statement on behalf of the people I represent in Hotham, and including that the many thousands of Cambodian-speaking and Cambodian-born people that I represent. A lot of those constituents, Deputy Speaker, fled the Khmer Rouge, and members of Parliament may not remember this, but 2 million people died under Pol Pot's regime. That was a quarter of the Cambodian population at the time. But this is a community that came to Australia, and by God, they have made good Australians. They have worked hard, sent their children off to school, to university, and right around my electorate and beyond, we see extraordinary achievements being made by people from the Cambodian community. But what they see when they look back to their sovereign country, Deputy Speaker, is a deteriorating human rights situation which is of very deep and grave concern to Australian Cambodians. Prime Minister Hun Sen and his ruling party have targeted Cambodia's opposition, activists, intellectuals, people working in human rights and those fighting for a free and fair democracy. The right to protest is routinely suppressed. Corruption is a cancer in Cambodia. The country now ranks 156 out of 176 countries on the Corruption Index. It is the single most corrupt country in Southeast Asia. And what chills us, I think, Speaker, most in this gallery is the suppression of democracy. We saw in the 2013 elections some very concerning things. Probably the worst incident was the shooting of 5 garment workers who were just expressing their civil rights and protesting in the streets. They were shot dead, Deputy Speaker, and I spoke out against the violence at that time. Since then, things have deteriorated further. I want to mention Dr Kem Lay, who was a prominent Cambodian political activist and in a sense became an icon of this movement of people that are fighting for fair and free elections in Cambodia. Dr Kem Lay came to Australia last year. He returned to Cambodia. He spoke out against the Hun Sen regime, and days later he was shot dead in broad daylight in Phnom Penh. He was assassinated, Deputy Speaker. Now, this is just an extraordinary violation of the rights of Cambodians to exercise a fair and free democracy, and we absolutely reject it. Dr Kemlay's widow, Madam Bu Rashana, and her 5 children have been granted visas to visit Thailand. They have applied for refugee status in Australia, and I have written to the Minister for Immigration asking that he look favourably upon that application. Deputy Speaker, I've sat with Cambodian leaders in the past and Cambodian leaders today, and I've felt their utter despair about what's happening in their country. And their message today to us was incredibly clear. They want us to stand up, they want us to say something, and they want us to join them in this fight for a fair and free democracy. And that is all that we can expect as human beings, these fundamental rights. I'll say in closing, Australia, Trute, Cho, Chia Moi, Bong Bron Khmer Yong Koyong Pai Payut Samrab Pro Chia Ti Bai Tai Yut Tor. Thank you so much for being here today.
I'd also like to acknowledge our guests in the gallery, and I hope their visit to Parliament has been successful today. The question